Welcome to the Why Not Today podcast, where we celebrate courage, determination, and the power of saying, why not today? I'm your host, Leslie Kane, and each episode we dive into inspiring stories of individuals who have taken bold steps, faced their fears, and embraced the possibility of today. From entrepreneurs to artists, dreamers to doers, we explore the moments when we said, enough waiting, and why not today? Join me as we uncover the heartwarming, the audacious, and the transformative, whether it's pursuing a lifelong passion, overcoming obstacles, or simply choosing joy. Our guests share their journeys that inspire all of us. I started this podcast in honor of my father, Pastor Kane, who often did say, why not today? And I always say, remember, you're just one decision away from changing your life. And I am excited about my guest, Samantha Marshall. I got that right?
Yeah.
I know her from her maiden name. And I always talk about how we connected and how we met. So I met Samantha years ago. She is in the Mary Kay world with me and just started the last few years. She just kept resurfacing and we reconnected and done all kinds of fun things. She actually is a photographer on top of another full-time career, but her side hustle, which is your magic, is your photography. And when I was setting up my website, my website designer was like, you need some branding. So I went to Sam and we got, wore my Why Not Today t-shirt and brought my cup. So if you've seen any of the branding with me and my Navy Why Not Today t-shirt, that is all Samantha. And we had so much fun doing it. We'll talk about it through the podcast because we're going to talk about her courage. We're also about courage behind the camera lens. And we all need to be courageous and get out there and show who we are. So, yay, Samantha, glad to have you here. So why don't you introduce yourself, kind of a little bio and a fun fact about you, and then we'll talk about courage.
Right. So I started the photography side of my life in 2013. I did start taking pictures way before that, but I noticed as I was scrapbooking, which that was a big trend back then, that everything I was doing, I started to frame things up. And then I started taking pictures of my friends' families and things like that. So then I decided to try something that year. It was, if it was new to me, it was free. And that was my motto. So I did like my first infant photography for free, which, ooh, that was a lot of work. And then my first cake smash for free, which I ended up doing cake smashes and I still do them. And just on and on and on, just different things. My first wedding I booked was technically for free, but then I had another wedding book me that paid me before I even tested out if I liked to do weddings. So it was very interesting that year.
Love that.
Yeah. And then let's see, fun fact.
Let's tell the story. Who's Samantha? Not the photographer, Samantha. Who's Samantha? And a fun fact.
I'm a mom and a grandma. That is a fun fact, but I have a better fact. And
that just shows the testimony of Mary Kay because it worked.
Yeah. Let's see. I grew up in Reston, so I've been a Restonian my whole life. I live in Sterling now, but I'm still a Restonian at heart. My parents' house is still there. My daughter lives in it. And what else about me? I have dogs. I have an MBA. I love education, so I actually teach. So that's one of my fun things too that we can talk about. My fun fact is actually about photography, but it's part of the courage story I can share later. And it's that I've been published in lots of little magazines, but I was actually published in Oprah's magazine.
Really?
Yeah. So my name's there and a bunch of photos I took, but not my face. But that's okay because my work is in that magazine. So I actually have it framed and I have the magazine, kind of showcased. But it was really
cool. Nice. I did not know that.
Yeah, nice fun fact. So
yeah, I love that. Yeah. So what does courage mean to you, Samantha?
So I made some notes, but I think courage is pretty simple as long as you're willing to take risks, because a lot of us hold back, especially as women. We're fearful of failing and we're fearful of getting things just wrong in general. And I think as long as we're willing to take a risk, I think that's extremely courageous. Even if it's something simple like, cutting your hair. I mean, it's a risk, right?
Yeah, cutting your hair, coloring your hair. There's so many
silly, like that. But taking a big step to like start a business later in life is a big courageous step, I think. So that's kind of what I did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it is taking the risk, and that's the why not today message. Like, what can we do? And it's just those little things. It doesn't have to be big, and
Yeah.
they all grow into bigger things.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about courage in your life. So it took courage to start a photography business after having a fulfilling career, and I know you love what you do with that. So, any courage stories around photography before we talk about how you have to be courageous?
So I think starting the business side, watching my mom as I grew up, she was a business owner and owned a business in Reston as well. And
Which is so funny that you grew up in Reston and I did. We never crossed paths.
I know, I know. Well, I did go to private school, so my pool of friends was very shallow. It was
Yeah.
very different, you know. But my mom owned a small training business, and so I worked for her when I was 18, and then I ended up, you know, getting into the field that I'm in now, thanks to her. And she was a big advocate of education, so a lot of times I would blindly jump into things, which is kind of courageous, I guess, because
Absolutely.
you just kind of jump back in. So I jumped back in so I started out at Mason and then I went to Nova because I didn't want to waste money. That was when I was 17 and 18 years old, I was like, this is such a waste when I could just be right at Nova. And
Right.
then it took like 8 years or so, actually 6 to 8 years. And my mom was like, you need to get your degree finished. And I already had like 90 credits. I had too many credits, you know, for the small part of it. And I ended up going to Shenandoah. And they had a cohort that they are starting up. So that was yet another kind of like blind jump where I was like, I'll just trust the system. And so I finished that degree. And then I continued and got my master's through the same type of process. So I got my master's in 15 months because of the way they had their weekend classes set up. So
And I did the opposite. I think it took me 5 years to get my MBA.
oh, well, see, and that's the thing. It's
But
just
my company was paying for it and they only paid so much per year. I'm like, all right, I will spread it out and just
yeah,
pay as much
I
as
lucked
possible.
out. Yeah, I lucked out because I was able to use some money from my grandparents and stuff. So that was nice. So then I think it was also a very courageous time in my life because my daughter was 6. And I actually remember her, and you know, she wouldn't mind me telling you because she's in her 30s now, but she cried and begged me to stop going to school because she missed
Aw.
me on the weekends. And I kept just saying, just give me 6 more months, you know, I'll be done, you know. But timelines for children are so different, you know.
Yeah,
So,
so looking back, does
oh,
she think
she's
it hurt her life?
no, not at all. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's amazing how at that time it was heartbreaking. But it was,
And that took courage for you to know you were doing something for her better good, longer term,
yeah.
and to have her holding on to your, skirt tails, basically, saying, don't leave.
Exactly. I wish I could have just brought her with me. That would have been much easier, right?
Yeah.
So then the photography thing came actually on because Mary Kay had been in my life for so long, and I went DIQ a couple times. Like I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, and even at 40, I didn't know what I wanted to
And
be.
for those people that don't understand the jargon of Mary Kay, it's the director in qualifications.
Yeah,
So it's moving into a leadership role, which is where I have landed a long
yeah,
time.
yeah. You've been there a really long time, but I didn't feel like it was for me. And I had really great mentors around me that were Mary Kay directors and nationals. And I ended up just deciding to LLC the photography because it was so much fun. And my husband was kind of on board. He didn't really know what he was getting himself into. And then I decided to take over 3 rooms in my house. So I took over, like when one of the children got old enough and they went into the loft, I took their room and I took the guest room and I took all these rooms. And that was tough. And now I have a studio because cleaning your house for clients, as you know, is not pleasant. So
But I think it helps me too to keep my house in order when people come over. I'm like, oh, I got to pick up.
I used to think that. But so that was pretty much, you know, how I guess that was about me, a little bit about the photography and a little bit about courage. So
That's awesome. So
yeah.
I really wanted you to come on and talk because I had you do my headshot and I had so much fun and you made it so comfortable and we were just having a conversation, and you're like, move this way, do this, do that, and you're just clicking pictures. And it was very natural. I talked to another friend of mine. She's like, I hate having headshots done and pictures done. And I think, with social media and all those pictures, everything's out there. And so, I struggle with taking pictures on my phone, and my eyes are a little older and I can't really see. And I post pictures and I often get in trouble from my nieces. Are like, don't post that picture. And I'm like, couldn't see. But you know what? I feel like, that's who we are. And we don't want these pictures posted and people to see, but people see us. That's how they see us.
Yeah.
We're not posed and perfect. And so let's talk about the courage it takes to have the people's picture taken, for people to reach out and get their picture taken, and a wedding or some special occasion, we all have
Yeah.
to.
So a good thing that comes to mind is when people do it for a milestone.
Yeah.
So like a birthday coming up or something like that. And I actually had somebody just in the last 6 months, and she really had not had her picture taken in probably 10 years. Like it was, her children were little and they had a family portrait done, but then all those years it was just about the kids and it wasn't
Well,
about.
and whoever the photographer in the family is, like I take a lot of pictures, and there's not a ton of pictures of me. And
Right.
like a lot of times moms take a lot of pictures of their kids, and then
Right.
there are a ton of pictures of the mom.
Yeah. And with Mother's Day coming up, that's a good point too, that women should really take the time to to pamper themselves. It isn't really even about being a mother. It's about just being a mom and you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's not a label.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, let's talk about having people coming into your studio, get their picture taken, and how I know it takes courage, and I'm sure lots of people are like, "Oh, does that look okay?" And they're not so self-assured. So let's talk about how you've seen, and I'm sure you've seen the person come in so timid, uncourageous. I don't know if that's a word.
yeah,
Then once you start taking pictures and making them comfortable, they kind of shift. So
yep,
let's talk about that and the courage.
yeah,
The whole selfie world, when we had to start taking selfies, that took courage,
it does. Yeah.
taking pictures.
Yeah. So some of the tricks I use are I talk about not current events, but I'll ask about their life. And then I'll just let them go off topic onto whatever they're like. If they're there for something specific, like a headshot, we don't want to talk about work. Sometimes I'll say, what do you do for a living? But then I'll ask about animals and, pets, kids, life, because it loosens them up and then it creates this less, stressful situation. And I have found humor helps quite a bit, and I can't really give examples of it because it has to be like on the fly, but I'll make little jokes here and there. And I'll tell you, if somebody makes fun of themselves or criticizes themselves, I will be like a bad comedian and I will say it 5 minutes later just to make them crack up. So if they say they have big ears, then I'll be like, no, you don't. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, you do. And then they just crack up because they like, oh, and then it's like I'm just throwing their own stuff back at them. And then they
Right.
realize how bad it sounded. But I do it in such a way that I think people are appreciative. Well, I know they are, because I would say I want to say 100% of people that leave my studio thank me and say that I was help them be, in a better place, or help them to be calm, or help them to just have a great time.
Yeah, be more confident.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think there's a lot of crossovers with Mary Kay.
Oh,
You know,
definitely. I learned
and I often ask people before I get together and show products to people, I'm like, what's that one thing that bugs you? Like if you look at a picture of 10 people, and we always look at ourselves and we always find that one thing that bugs us. And that's what we work on. And people are always concerned about what they look like. They're not looking at anybody
no
else.
one's looking at us. Right. No one is looking at us.
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
everybody's looking at themselves. So being able to make people feel better about themselves,
Yeah.
and you're just doing it through behind a lens,
Yeah.
and
And it's really
capturing who their real being is. I think.
Yeah. And it's neat for them to see the proofs afterwards, because it's like a series. And I always tell them the beginning, I always like to go backwards if I'm going through proofs with people, because they're so warmed up by the end.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like we don't even look at the first 20 pictures
Yeah.
because it's stiff or the lighting wasn't right or something, isn't right. But yeah, by the time they get to the end, those are the great shots. So
And I
yeah.
know you've been doing a little bit more with getting your picture taken.
Yes, every month I've been I either hire a photographer or barter with another photographer, and I'll try to do a full branding session. And now I wear red like all the time because that's our brand color, but I'll try to find a piece. Like I went to this mall and found this gorgeous, huge, fluffy coat that's all red where am I going to wear that? I'll wear it to like 2 events, but I
Right.
have it. And so I'm trying to also find different spaces. So I know what it feels like to be behind, in front of the lens.
Right.
And also I've noticed I'm learning a little bit because I'll pick up little things that they do to get me to relax. So, maybe I say things differently, but I'll pick it up. So it's kind of nice. And then I'll bring along other people, other photographers that don't do it. And then they can observe a photographer doing it with me. And then afterwards they're like, man, that was like very educational. So it's almost like a little master class.
Yeah.
For all
And
of
I'm and I'm sure being behind the camera, you become very intuitive and very insightful of what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know someone in their family was going through a divorce and they were doing family pictures and they weren't separated yet, but they were heading in that direction. And the mother did not know this. And so they had all the family pictures. And when the mom went to pick up the picture, she's like, well, now, they're getting divorced. And the photographer's like, I could tell. Like she said,
Yeah.
I could tell from people's body language.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is amazing. And a lot of times you can even tell like if the children are, unhappy with one of the parents or something that day. That's another thing. If I'm doing a family session, I always make sure to talk to the family like leading up to the event because I want it to be as less stressful as possible. And I try to tell them, even if your kid's running around being nuts, that's what they were like. And you want to capture that. You don't
right.
want to yell at them and bribe them. I had one family bribe with candy, which is totally fine, except it was chocolate. So
And
you
then,
can imagine the amount of chocolate on the kid's face by the end of the session. But you know what? That was their
that
session.
was who
She
they were.
had
And
chocolate
they
all
liked
over
it.
her face, and she was adorable. So it's just like, well, next time I remember just no chocolate.
I remember when we went to the beach as a family, we'd have a photographer do a family picture. And somebody at one point was like, we could do our own picture, but this photographer did sunrise and sunset. So we did a sunset picture. And we never would have done it if we weren't paying somebody because somebody needed a nap and somebody else was cranky and somebody was hungry. And then it's interesting. My brother, the photographer, showed like her portfolio. One of the picture was, people's backs walking to the beach. And my brother's like, who would waste money on that? Well, one of their favorites was them holding my sister-in-law and brother holding my niece's hand, and she turned back around towards the camera, but they were all walking. It was a great picture. So
Yeah.
you got to trust that photographer.
Yeah, and plus it's a memory that you don't have yet. You know what I mean? Like until you see it, you don't even know it's
right.
It's happening. And that's another thing. People need photos to remember things. Like we have so many things in our lives, we'll go aha moment like, oh, that did happen 10 years ago. But if you had some photos of it, that would
now we do with fun. Yeah. We have a database of pictures. My sister told one of my nieces one time maybe that she should do a diary or journal of what she does in her life. She goes, why? I have a phone.
Good point.
Yep. So let's go back. You talked about branding, and I know that's one of your things you like to do as a branding session. Yeah. And you did that with me with Why Not Today. So let's talk about that for people. So whether they have a business or, we are our own brand, whether it's a business or not. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like people have their favorite colors. I don't know if you've noticed this. People that like purple. Have you ever noticed people that like purple?
Yeah.
That they are like over the top, like that is the one color I've noticed that people that like it are just love it. It's not like, oh, it's okay. It is all in purple.
Yes. I know one woman, she lives in Florida now, And I think 100% of her stuff is purple, like all of her clothing, everything.
I know someone, everything in her life, she has had the same purple nail polish for 30 years. Like,
Lucky you still get it.
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so let's talk about branding. Why
Yeah.
is that important, and what does that do for us, whether it's a business or just who we be?
Yeah, so I think this year's push is going to be to help people brand themselves, because you don't have to like come up with a character. You know, some people have a character, you know, like a crazy hairdo or big glasses or, you know, something. But as long as you market yourself, you want to make sure you can, well, the word I would not like to use is control, but I like control because we can control what people see of us, right?
Right.
If you do a branding session. Whereas if you just said to, you know, your kids, take, you know, a picture of me and throw it on the internet, like, you know, we were talking before, you may think it looks great. Someone else might not think it looks great. But if you have somebody helping you with that process, then you can look at the big picture and then come up with the best of the best. And that's part of the process that we do in the studio is, you know, you have like 100 pictures, you're going to go home with 10. You're not going to go home with 100 because you don't need that many, right?
Right.
So yeah, and branding can be anything. Can be a feeling. It can be a perception of your business. It could be, you know, who you want to be. Like, you remember the whole like thing, dress in the job that you want?
Right.
Right. It's kind of that. You
Yeah.
could totally brand yourself and people wouldn't know if you're a CEO or if you're, you know.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And I think it's branding is, you know, what gives us joy in our life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a beach girl, which I was just thinking we might need to do, like, go on a road trip to the beach one day. And do some pictures. But my house is decorated like the beach because it gives me joy. I had a friend one time come and she's like, and it totally insults me, but she didn't mean it this way. But she came into my house and she goes, "You need to have one of those decorating shows that come and redo everything. Come to your house and redo it all and make it more like you're so successful that you should have your house look like you're so successful." Like thinking Ethan Allen, those kind. I'm like,
Yeah.
that is not me. That would not make me happy.
Right.
You know, so we have to do the things that make us happy. And I was talking to another friend that has a decorating business. And we were talking about somebody that her house is so prestigious and perfect for the appearance of somebody coming in, but it's not who she is. Like, our house, our surroundings, what we wear should reflect who we are.
Yeah. Well, and that actually is why I got my studio, because yes, I have dogs. Yes, I had teenagers at the time when I started the business. Yes, I hated cleaning up after them before everybody came over, but I branded myself into the studio. The way the studio looks is the way I want you to feel. It's like, it's not super boutique. You're not going to, oh, well, maybe this year I'll change it and you'll get champagne when you walk in the door. But at my house, that wasn't the vibe at all.
Right.
And I could have still done that stuff and it wouldn't have felt the same.
Right.
So that was
And
one
after
of
you
the
branded your business, you changed the name to Studio 151.
Yep.
Love.
Yeah, I love it too. And I can't wait. I'm actually going to be retiring, sweet memories, soon enough. It's going to be hard. It's like a child. And I'll tell you, the only reason I even named it that and the whole world can know is because it's my initials. Because I knew that if I ever branded anything with an S and an M, I could keep it forever because it's Samantha Marshall. So
Love that. That is pretty smart.
yeah, it's
So yeah, we need to encourage people to be courageous and get the pictures taken and do those branding and photo shoots. And it's fun. It makes you relax and fun.
And another thing I did for a milestone is I did my own 50th birthday because I really wanted one of those regal pictures like that you would see above a fireplace. That's like this, you know, like an old school picture. And I did. I hired a model. She came and actually I showed her how to use my camera, but I hired her so she could pose me properly. And it's because a lot of times I don't know how to pose myself, but I can pose you.
Yeah.
I can see where you're moving, but with myself, I can't feel the way it's supposed to feel. So now that's another reason why I'm doing my monthly stuff, because now I can feel it and I can understand. And my big joke, and I said it 10 times today because I did a huge headshot thing. If you're in pain right now, you're probably doing it right because the pose is like perfect, but you're stretched out or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, cool.
Yeah.
So how would you encourage somebody else to be courageous?
Let's see. I would just say go for your dreams because no one else is going to do it for you. And I think as the older I get, the more that makes sense. Before, I think, and I just learned this about myself. I'm taking a couple different classes and I have some mentors that are helping me through some things business wise. But my type of personality as I'm learning, as I'm getting older, is very hands-on. I needed trial and error. I needed to fail, which was not really, I never called it failure. It was just more like, it's kind of like the whole Nike joke where they said, Michael Jordan never really got to where he was without failing a few times or whatever. But by the time I hit 50, all of a sudden things just made sense. And it wasn't that I had to like think it through. It was just all that trial and error for 20 something, 30 years.
I think once we hit those milestone bigger birthdays, we kind of look at life and like, oh, you have a lot of data you've collected.
Mm-hmm.
And everything we've done is not for naught. Like every little thing, every little failure, every little experience, it all builds up to who we are.
Right. And as long as you take it with you, don't just, ignore it.
Maxwell says, if you fall down, then get up, but pick up the lesson with you.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say just do it because you'll regret.
Why not today?
Yeah, why not today? Yeah.
Exactly.
Perfect segue.
Yeah. Well, I always try to connect back to my dad when I talk to people. And I'm sure you crossed paths with my dad. And I'm sure your parents knew my dad at some point in this world.
I would bet you money that my parents did know him because they belonged to the chamber way back in the day.
My dad started it.
And the fact that I think the chamber is really what brought us back together because
Yeah.
I wouldn't have met your sister, I wouldn't have met you again. And if he hadn't done that, none of this would have happened, right? So
amazing just to see the pieces. And then the other thing that's kind of a connection, my dad, is he started the business the year he passed away. So it's kind of a monumental year in my world.
Wow.
But yeah, so I can't wait to do another photo shoot, and I hope people contact you to have theirs done. So how do people find you? And I will share this in the show notes too, but what's the best place?
I would say the website is probably the best because it has all the information needed, and that's Studio 151 Photo. So it's studio151photo.com. And then LinkedIn is actually my go-to. I don't know, as I've gotten older, LinkedIn is my new Facebook. So
okay.
LinkedIn a lot more. And I feel like the connections are more valid there. So, and people are saying that to me more. Like they say, oh, I saw you on LinkedIn. And I'm thinking, okay, that's where it is. On there, my name, Samantha Marshall, but I also have the business accounts. And then I do have my Facebook and my Instagram. And everything has the same name. So Studio One.
And I'll share all that. And Samantha's, your studio's in Sterling, Virginia. So if people are local and want to go get some pictures done or follow her, and she's doing some fun events. So I'm excited to see what all you do.
Yeah, I didn't talk about teaching. So we teach in the studio too. So classes at least twice a month on the weekends. And I
would love to do some more photography classes because I love taking pictures. They aren't always so good. But
it's all perspective.
I need to get a class that's niece approved.
Okay. There you go. That's work. That works.
Well, if you want to follow the Why Not Today podcast, we are on everywhere you can find. I just met a couple before we came on, and they're like, "Where do I find you? Are you on Spotify?" I'm like, "Of course, Spotify, iTunes, all the places. You can always go to whynottodaypodcast.com. We have Why Not Today t-shirts. We have Why Not Today stickers and vinyls and cups and all this stuff. I actually made some coffee cups for somebody that said he wanted a coffee cup. So we can do anything in Why Not Today. And, I really encourage people to just say, why not today? So thank you, Samantha, for being my guest. Thank you, everybody else, for joining us on this inspiring journey. Remember, every day is an opportunity to take action, chase your dreams, and make a difference. So why not today? And remember, subscribe, share, and keep pushing forward. Until next time, stay motivated and keep making things happen, as you say, Why not today?
Thank you.